Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us on Daybreak Extra. So, of course, today we'll be talking about poetry. So, now we know that poetry is a timeless art form that transcends boundaries, speaks of or to the soul, and also mirrors the complexities of the society. So, through its rhymes, talking about the rhythms and verses, it captures the struggles, the triumphs, and emotions that define humanity. It's something that basically just keeps us, in tune and in touch with our human side and humanity, reminding us of what is going on in our society. Beyond just words, of course, poetry has the power to change societal norms, ignite conversations, and inspire change. It serves as a medium for self expression, healing, and personal transformation. So joining us, of course, to do justice, to talk about the importance of poetry in our society is Ibrahim Jimoh. He is a poet and a writer. He is also an award-winning writer and author of Reflections of the Sojourners. Joining us, of course, via Zoom from Lagos State. Good morning, Ibrahim.
Good morning.
Thank you so much
It's
for
nice
joining us today.
to have you. Lovely to discuss one of the vital things that keeps us, bonds us together.
Of course.
And thank
No
you for
problem.
having me.
All right, it's always a pleasure. But then, Ibrahim, let's start by why the path of poet. We just finished talking about career path, where in Nigeria we don't get to see parents grooming their child to be a poet. So, how did you find yourself in this career path?
I think for me, it's let me bust some people's bubbles. I'm an engineer by profession. I studied engineering, electrical and electronics engineering, but right from childhood, reading, writing, art generally has been something I love to do. I think every child that is nurtured to love to write, to read literatures, would find solace in, if not poetry, even prose generally. So from childhood right through secondary school, I had always written, represented my school in the spelling bee, and while even I was a science student then, so I participated in literature classes while in secondary school, and even through the university, I joined literary societies. In fact, I was singled out due to some of my writings that I was able um, to do then. Joined the Muslim Student Society of Nigeria editorial board. I was invited to join. At some point, through my writings, I co-authored some kind of poetry book with a couple of friends. So I write on blogs, write generally, and it's just an inspiration. Things that it's writing poems comes to me is a kind of solace to me, and I think for me it's just like a passion that I've chosen, whether no matter what profession I do, and it reflects even in my professional career. While I was in Kano working with the Kano Electricity Distribution Company, in the magazine which I contributed to, I wrote the column for poetry in that magazine, and encouraging our people to go green, to push just to encourage people to pursue energy efficiency and skill them from things that would bring about detriment to the system and to the community as a whole.
Really interesting, Ibrahim. But my just question right now, because you got me confused. It seems right from day one, while growing up, you already knew what your strengths were. So why mechanical engineering?
Okay, I think when I was in 300 level, I wrote a there was a national essay contest that I won, and after winning that, I wrote another one when Nigeria wanted to celebrate the Nigerian centenary, 2014. Goodluck Jonathan was still the president then. So I my writing was selected, and by virtue of that, I represented Kwara State. I was studying in the University of Ilorin, so I represented Kwara State at the national centenary competition. They call it Centenary Juniors. So I was representing Kwara State. And so one of my lecturers at the faculty said, "Hey, Ibrahim, come here. What are you doing in engineering?" and, and a lot of people actually they've confused. They take me for being in, maybe I was a law student, because some of my friends are law students. Some are in the Faculty of Humanities, literature, and they feel like, oh, you are in engineering. But we used to. This is like a conflicting. But then we. One thing I say is that knowledge generally is a whole. It is at some point in time that knowledge is being, we have specialties of knowledge. Like, okay, you want to study even in maybe languages, you are studying English, you are studying poetry, you are studying this and that. But generally, I find it anything that um, I feel comfortable to do, or any field I'm moving into, as the knowledge is a whole. So whatever pricks your interest is, it's just this. So for me, I feel like we should not isolate this kind of knowledge. Now, I authored poetry books. I tutor kids. I teach kids on how to with some of my writings, and this has helped in a way. Even as I told you, in my profession also, we could even use poetry as a means to evangelize, or maybe I would use it for a better word, to call people to change in whatever sector we are. Like,
Yeah.
you are a journalist now.
Yeah.
Poetry could be a means to drive effective journalism, could be a means to drive effective utilization of resources, could be a means to persuade our leaders, could be a means to. So, in every of our sphere of life, poetry is a form of communication, a very unique one that has been even before, from time immemorial. So, I don't see it conflicting. There are so many poets who have flourished in different faculties. And there some are astronauts, but at the same time, they write.
You're right to
Some
that. I mean, that is
they
really
flourish in
beautiful.
different.
That is really beautiful,
Yeah,
Ibrahim. We've seen Nigeria become welcoming to every kind of art. We've seen ourselves grow when it comes to art, and appreciative of it. I mean, before we don't have enough people that understand, or a lot of people that understand what the meaning is behind poetry. But now people listen, and people are teary. People understand the in depth of it. So, in your own view, what would you say has been the power of poetry, and how come it has continued to resonate with people and the society, considering that it has become like a mirror, it's a power of reaching out to the society?
I think poetry is such a unique genre of literature that, um, just like language, we there is this beauty that comes with the usage of words, the emotions behind the how the words are arranged, how the words are used, the patterns, the rhythm, the rhymes, and all these are things that are just inbuilt. They are in human nature even before we give classifications to them, and we see these during maybe some of past generations. You study the likes of Longfellow. Even amongst women, you have Maya Angelou. You have all these great writers who have transformed the world, who have influenced people with their poetry, with their poems. And even as I am currently, I was flying yesterday to Lagos, and I was reading one of a poetry book that one of my lecturers had written. She gave it to me as a copy, and I was, it's refreshing, and also it helps bring it suits our minds, and could help also to curb the increase in mental health issues around people, because there's power in world. There's this quote on poetry that I love. I've forgotten who said poetry at the touch of love, everyone becomes a poet. And so poetry generally is just about having bringing out the deep feelings, the deep meaning in things, in nature, in everything. So I may look at the tree and you just see a tree, but I'm seeing leaves that are dancing. I'm seeing roots that are playing karaoke with the direction of the winds. So you see how all this are, you can go deep and deep and deep, and then you start saying, oh, true, this is it.
Hmm. It's really beautiful. I mean, when you talk about poetry, but then you made mention of, you people making efforts to create, to hold people accountable, create societal awareness on what's going on. Would you say there's been a progress when it comes to poetry and messages to society?
Of course, there have been progress. Aside just writing, there are lots of poets out there who have influenced the society with whether it is spoken poetry in spoken words at events, or whether it is through their writings. For example, during one of the menace that we know in the society that the government is trying to calm down the north is the Almajiri system, trying to make it, how do we solve this, the issue of the Almajiri system. And at a point in 2017, while I was in Kano, there is this contest that was put out for poets to write something about the Almajiri system, about the Almajiri, to bring about solution to it. And this draws all some of the traditional rulers, the town, the people in the society who are decision makers, the traditional rulers, who are people who would make change in the society, and also the common man, also individuals who are concerned. And through that, I was like, what do we have to say about these children that are suffering, that are victims of our inadequacies in our society? And my poem, fortunately, was selected as one of the winners of the prize, and along others. And these are some of the means by which we drive change. We use the community, a community of poets, our words, books that we publish, and forums like the one that was done in 2017 and others, to encourage and provide solution and to some of the menace or some of the issues going on in the society.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Saying that piece, the Almajiri poem, won you the Kwandala Poetry Prize. So yes, another congratulations for you for creating a huge awareness to a problem that we need to change. But I think everybody is playing around that. Everybody does not want the society to blame them in making a decision that should be done to protect the kids, from vulnerable societal or street norms. So let's talk about personal growth. Now, I know someone that started poetry just to voice out pain, life complexities going on in her mind. And I've seen people walk through it. I've seen therapists use it when it comes to mental challenges to just tell the patient to voice their concern in written form. How would you say that poetry has, help you, guide you, transform your life on a personal level?
On a personal level, poetry has really helped me a lot. So I write. One of the times I write a lot, that the frequency becomes the more. It's maybe at times when I'm feeling overwhelmed, there are lots of pieces going on around me that I'm trying to fit together, and it's my own kind of, I would say, oasis, where I run to my safe space, or safe space, where I find myself with myself in a tranquil position where I feel just safe. So at times like those times, I just try to pour my heart, pour out whatever I have in forms of writing. Very and most of this writing is at this point in time comes out to be some of my best pieces that I've written. So I had a chance sometimes to be at Landmark and some other when I take inspiration from anything around. I could just be in a room and look at the position of how the fan or the sofas are arranged. When I'm on flight, like yesterday that I'm flying, I still wrote like almost 3 to 4 3 to 4 pages of poems. So I use my leisure time. So while in the flight, there was a time there was this serious turbulence and everyone was in panic, people chanting to their creator and some persons just grabbing to whatever you could grab to. And, those kind of things are inspirations to any poet. You just look around, you see things to pick inspiration from, and then you write. So for me personally, it has helped me to be calm. I'll say calmer, and whenever I feel like I feel this trouble in my life, or there's something moving on, a lot of things moving. I just pick my pen, write, and after then, it's really therapeutic.
All right.
It's really great. A great
Yeah, I
experience.
mean, you're talking about how calm you are. I'm still learning the words of poetry to even understand. I know there's some times where if we're pointing about perhaps issues in the society and then we have a poet come on stage to talk about it, that is easily something you can relate with. But the other times that you pick a book and you're reading and there's some meaning, but some terms are really difficult. So give us using, a more layman example where we get to start understanding poetry in a better way to understand meaning behind it. Walk us through your book, one of your poetry that you did well on, which is the reflection of the sojourners. Walk us through that and how people are supposed to really understand the meanings and every words when it comes to reading poetry.
I think for poetry, there are different styles depending on the author and their rich, the how rich they are with languages. So some with the intents at which they are also writing. So, for example, I might want to show off my level of vocabulary and then start to write some in a way that if you're not so grounded in the language, you won't really, you might not really understand, but you will just see that, oh, this guy is throwing some big words around. And you'll see the differences when you look at writings by Professor Wale Soyinka, especially my first time reading the telephone conversation of Professor Wale Soyinka, it was like, what does this man say? Sometimes you have to read again and again, and then try to look at the lines one after the other, trying to just connect the dots. So, but then in another realm, you find, which I do often because some of my friends will say, because of you, I started to pick interest in poetry. Why? Because you write in such a way that it is not too complex for we ordinary people. I don't want to be cracking my brain reading poetry and try to, so what is this person trying to say here? But then the poetry is fun because then you could throw words around and make it fun. And sometimes you could also make the audience to come to their own conclusion. So I have some poems like that, and there are some poems like that where you write, then any conclusion the audience comes to, it's most likely their own. So you let them arrive at their own conclusion. So what I do is try as much as possible to ensure, depending on the audience, to make sure that the language um, is not too difficult for people to understand. The rationale behind writing is for people to read, to change their lives, to appreciate, to have fun, to connect with. So I really want right to connect with people, things that ordinary people with the basic level of English language would
Yeah.
understand and relate to it. So
No.
that is it. For some other poems that are in that level of the telephone conversation or more like that, then it's also fun then, because you have, even for me now, I take up some poems, and then you look at, then you go back again, then you feel like, oh, I think I have a different meaning from the meaning I picked up from this poem in the first time, and that is very interesting. So for the book I talked about yesterday, for that my lecturer wrote, at when I read it the first time. So the second time I was on flights traveling to somewhere. I said, okay, let me pick this book again, and I read. And what I now do is I ensure that I write my remark or my thoughts around the poetry and then send back to the author to just show that, okay, I read your book and this is what the meaning I pick from what you've written personally, or what I think it's a missing piece, or what I can add to it from this, which has been great. It has been great.
I mean
So because it's good,
that
it
is really
helps. The
beautiful,
feedback helps the
Ibrahim.
author also to
Yeah,
improve.
that would be really lovely, for you to give room for people to reply and say, "This is my understanding." Now you've basically explained to us that that a writer or a poet can drop a message, and everybody could deduct a different meaning from that. And I mean, it's up to you to make your own decision. But let's talk about really briefly the idea before by writing the reflection of the sojourners. What's the book all about, and what is the message that you want every reader to pick from that?
I think the Reflections of the Sojourners, is an anthology. I co-authored it with a few friends of mine who we were in the literary world together. We were editors then. I wrote that while I was a student. I think I was in 400 level engineering, and some of them, one is studying um, law, another one, I think medicine. You could see, and there is another one, another of my friend who was studying, I think, literature there. So it's the Reflections of the Sojourner from the title. In fact, I wrote the introduction to the book because um, we're looking for something, a short piece, a poem that would really capture the essence of the book. So the reflections of the sojourners, from the title, you see, it's like reflections of this young students, or reflections of this youth as a sojourn in life. So it cuts across love, cuts across faith, cuts across um, hope, cuts across relationship, and some themes like that. So it's a kind of holistic kind of writing that helps the individual find balance in his or her life. Read something about love, things that gives you comfort, things that challenges you for to set goals, to that the future is bright. You're not a failure. Things that gives you assurance that you're not alone. God is with you. You're on the right path. Things that encourage you to hold there are the people who are close to you, to nurture the relationship that matters to you. So it's a holistic kind of reflection of, I think, four of us who are youths and are sojourning in life, our challenges, our hope, our aspirations, some of the issues around the society, and the change we wish to have in our society. So these are some of the issues, some of the things we put up in the book. And till today, I think sometimes I look at the book, I say this book needs it's a part two. This
Indeed.
book needs a part two to encourage the youths, especially as we are moving into we're now in the technology era, AI and everything,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
everyone is just racing to make this and that, some new issues in the society.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's
Ibrahim,
it.
talking about encouraging the youth now, let's talk about the financial perspective of peak and poetry. We've seen a lot of people thrive, but we know that there are challenges as well. How would you say it is when it comes to the financing and, the rewards of poetry as a career?
I think first reward of poetry is that it is personal. So for me, for me, I don't need to be paid to write my poems, because then I started writing poems for myself before I started singing. So it's like, I said I have love for it. So they used to, there's this quote that says, Nemo the quotes non abet or something. You can't give what you don't have. Yeah, you can't give what you don't have. So it has to come from the inside, outside. So it is then you create your best, and then your best continue to be like, you can continue to improve on what you create. So on the financial side for poets, there are lots of poets who are established. You could go into publishing books. You could go into um, reciting your poetry. I find reciting poetry recitation very important. So there are lots of things, just like any other field. There are challenges, but if you do your craft genuinely, and then you see platforms where you could share, platforms where you
I mean, that's really beautiful, Ibrahim. It's always really good for you to
for
love what you
support.
do and truly appreciate you. I mean,
Then
Ibrahim, I've seen even some of your work in,
I
yeah.
ensure that
Ibrahim, I wanted to say I've seen some of your work being shown, been sold in Amazon, which is really a great thing. So yes, there is a reward. We've seen a lot of people do that. It's so unfortunate that the network has cut off Ibrahim, but we've had a really grateful, good and really insightful conversation. I mean, that was Ibrahim Jimoh. He's a poet and a writer. Also, let's not forget, award-winning writer and author of the Reflections of the Sojourners. Now, with that, of course, we wrap up this segment. Hope you pick a theme or two. I mean, poetry, it has come to stay, and it's really, really making thrive. We've seen likes of Alhan Islam making Nigeria proud globally, and other up and coming. So hopefully we get to see better exploration of that particular career path. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll briefly look at the trend and stories. So stay with us.